Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2021 Meet the Candidates Forum for the Camdenton Municipal election to be held on Tuesday, April 6th. This joint forum is a result of the collaboration between Camdenton and Lake Area Chamber of Commerce and is presented by Lake TV. We welcome all the viewers who are joining us either online or live on Lake TV and would like to take this opportunity to introduce tonight's facilitator, Luke Hagedorn. Luke Hagedorn is a lifelong Lake resident and a 1998 graduate from Camdenton R3. Luke's father, Dan Hagedorn, served as president of the City of Camdenton Council for 10 years. Luke currently sits on the board of directors for the Lake Area Chamber of Commerce and serving as the legislative committee chair. Thank you, Luke, for your time and support for this evening, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Casey. On behalf of Lake TV, the chambers, and all the voters in the City of Camdenton, we thank you for your attendance and participation and look forward to getting to know each of you a bit better and learn about... Oh, shoot. On behalf of Lake TV, the chambers, and all the voters in the City of Camdenton, we thank you for your attendance and participation and look forward to get to know each of you a bit better and learn about your thoughts and views on the Camdenton City government. 5 mayoral candidates have filed for the 2-year term. We are pleased to have all 5 candidates join us this evening. John McNabb, Daniel Owsley, Steve Eden, Matt Gray, and Christopher Keith. Before we get started, we have a few ground rules to cover. We ask all those in the room to please turn off or silence your cell phone and remain seated during the entire session to avoid the disruption of our live broadcast. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes for opening and closing statements. We put a call out to the community for pertinent questions regarding this particular election. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the selected questions. We have a timekeeper and a clock up front. Once the question is completed and the response begins, the clock will start. Please be aware of your time, or I will be obliged to make you aware of the time. If there are no questions or concerns, we will start with our opening comment. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. Determined by a random draw, our first speaker will be Christopher Keith. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christopher Keith. I'm a 1998 graduate of Camdenton High School also. I've lived in the Lake area pretty much all of my life. I'm a third-generation resident of Camdenton. I've done everything from fire service here at the lake. Now I'm in law enforcement. I've been to college. I've got an associate's degree from Columbia College. There's lots of things I'd like to see changed and fixed in the city of Camdenton, starting with infrastructure to help bring more jobs into the area, and also with housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Our next speaker, determined by random draw, will be Matt Gray.
Hi, my name is Matthew Gray. I'm a family man. I've been married for 25 years. I have 3 kids. My youngest is a sophomore over in Camden. I've got kind of a unique background where I've done quite a bit of different things. I started out in public service. I spent over 10 years in law enforcement. During that time, I did everything from SWAT to I was a recruiter for a while, but a lot of the time I was a community police officer. During that time, I worked in the community, worked with the community leaders, and was able to get things done, everything from combating drugs to cleaning up blight in the city. About 15 years ago, I started my own business. I currently own 3 fitness centers and Jets Trampoline Park. So I have a unique background of both public service and business owner. I'm going to bring that with me wherever I go, and it's my intention to bring it to the city. I know a lot. This government is not run like a business. Unfortunately, it should be in a lot of areas. We need to put parameters on our government. This is my intention, to keep our government very limited, and certain things in the government like police, that needs to be upgraded, in my opinion, in the city of Camden. There's a lot of blight in our city, a lot of run-down stuff. That's another thing where the city needs to pick up and take the time and the money to increase the beautification of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Our next speaker, determined by random draw, will be John McNabb.
Hello, I'm John McNabb, and I am the current mayor of the city of Camdenton. I moved here 45 years ago. I've spent my entire adult life in the Camdenton community. I was a teacher for 31 years in the Camdenton school system. I continue to coach track to this time. I've been employed by the school system for 45 years now. My wife and I, Maurice, we've been married for 43 years. We raised our 3 children here. They're all graduates of Camdenton High School. And I've lived in the city for 24 years. I'd also like to say that I have voted in every municipal election in those 24 years. I was originally appointed to the Board of Aldermen in 2007 in October. I was appointed to replace my good friend Jack Crowell, who at the time was battling pancreatic cancer. I was reelected again to the Board of Aldermen in 2008, 2010, and 2012. In 2013, when Dennis North decided not to run again for mayor, I was elected. I've been elected in 2013, 15, 17, and 19. I think of myself as a public servant. I'm not a politician. My goal is always what's best for us in the community. I want to thank the staff of the city of Camdenton. I think we work well together. We've accomplished a lot in my time as mayor, and I'd like the opportunity to continue.
John. Our next speaker with 2 minutes will be Steve Eden.
Hello, my name is Steve Eden. I came here to the Lake area in the spring of '86 as a paramedic for ambulance district in Sunrise Beach. In the fall of '86, I was hired by the city of Camdenton as a police officer, where I served in that capacity for 8 years. I then transferred to the fire department as the first full-time fire marshal building inspector. Then in '96, I then went to work for the sheriff's office, where I continue to work to today. During that time, I also was a volunteer with the Camdenton Fire Department, going from a firefighter all the way up to fire chief, giving 23 years of that time. Because of my experience, well, then '97 I was elected to the council for the first time. And I believe that because of my experience with being an employee, being a department head, being on the council, I have some unique perspectives where I'm able to see things that possibly other people can't see. Sometimes, having a different set of eyes to look at things can help come up with some new solutions. And I think that I could do that, and I would really appreciate your consideration this election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final candidate for opening statements, Mr. Daniel Owsley.
Hi, I'm Daniel Owsley. I'm a local business owner here in Camdenton. We've been in business for 25 years. Two most important things in my life are my Christian faith and my family. I just decided to run for mayor. I wanted to serve the people, for one, but I also felt like I needed to run for mayor. I'd seen the way things have been going over the last few years. We had PDMP passed, which is a prescription drug monitoring program. I feel like, my wife can't even get my doctor patient information because of HIPAA laws without my consent, and now Camdenton residents, private information is being sent off to St. Louis County. Then the next thing that bothered me was, with the lockdowns and everything, I felt like our First Amendment rights were violated. We weren't allowed to go to church. We weren't allowed to run our businesses. I just felt like things needed to change. Also, there was the OCT that our current mayor was pushing for, and it would put us in a tax bracket with Springfield. It would have significantly raised our personal property taxes. They couldn't even say that our tax dollars would stay here locally. There's just a lot of issues that really made me feel like I needed to run for mayor. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the question and answer portion of the evening. And again, we put a call out to the community for pertinent questions regarding this particular election. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the selected questions, and the questions have not been shared with the candidates in advance of this forum. We will start with Mr. Mayor on the first question. And the question is, what inspired you to run for mayor? Is there a particular issue or issues that motivated you to seek re-election at this time?
Well, originally I ran for mayor after serving for 5 years on city council. I thought I was prepared for the job. I had the experience, and I knew something about what was required as the mayor. I've never had an agenda. I've never been against anything. I've never been out to fire anybody or make drastic changes. I've always tried to work closely within the system. I've tried to work closely with the board. I think I understand how the board operates, and hopefully I can bring that or continue to bring that to city council meetings.
Very good. Our next respondent will be Daniel Owsley. And if you ever need me to repeat a question or if you have a clarification, feel free to ask questions and I will do my best to accommodate. So Daniel, what inspired you to run for mayor? Is there a particular issue or issues that motivated you to seek election at this time?
The main thing that motivated me and inspired me to run for mayor was the lockdowns. I mean, our constitutional rights, our First Amendment right was violated. We couldn't go to church. Many businesses were shut down. People couldn't feed their families. Even the city park, full of fresh air and sunshine, we couldn't even go walk the trails in the park. They put big barricades in front of the park. And I mean, people were home with their families. We would like to at least go to our park and go for a walk and get some fresh air. That's really the main issue that motivated me to run for mayor.
Very good. Chris, what inspired you to run for mayor? Is there a particular issue or issues that motivated you to seek election at this time?
As a recent former employee of the city of Camdenton, I've seen a lot of the stuff going on inside and outside. People keep talking about the lockdown of the city park. It was barricaded. So happened if somebody that decided not to pay attention to the barricade would have gotten hurt down in there. The response time for law enforcement, EMS, fire to get down there would have been a lot bigger, a lot longer. Those people would have been put at safety risks. Closing businesses, I don't think should have been done. I would like to bring more interaction with the public back to the mayor's office where truths are being spoken. Bring morals and ethics back to the mayor's position. To keep other things inside the city from going on and continuing. Thank you.
Very good. Matthew, what inspired you to run for mayor? Is there a particular issue or issues that motivated you to seek election at this time?
Yes, there is. One of the things I really have thought about this, actually, and figured this question would be coming, and I was really thinking about what does the city need? And the spirit of the city is down. If you look at the poverty rate, it shows anywhere from 18 to 28%. The national average is 10%. So we're at best case scenario twice as likely to be in poverty if you live in the city of Camdenton. But you look around and there's constantly help wanted signs. So what I plan on doing is getting a coalition of business owners together and help bring up our community. Something that I think the mayor will probably say, or that I've heard him say in the past, is that he has had so many business applications come through and business permits, but how many has he actually helped bring to the city? That's what I want to know. And if he's been here for the last 8 years, how much better are you off in the last 8 years? Thanks.
And the final respondent to the first question, Mr. Steve Eden. What inspired you to run for mayor? Is there a particular issue or issues that motivated you to seek election at this time?
I've often been told that if you want to affect change, sometimes the best way to do it is from the inside. Ever since I've been here, good jobs has always been an issue. And I would like to see more effort put into seeking some of those companies that would come here for those year-round jobs, because then that just rolls over into other things. The money's spread around, the city prospers, but sometimes having somebody else look at it from a different point of view can come up with some other ideas. So I decided I would file and give another option. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Daniel. Daniel, what are things that you think that the city does well? And what are areas for improvement?
One of the things I think the city does well is our law enforcement. I actually had a couple Back the Blue rallies up at the square, support our law enforcement over the summer, and talking to a lot of law enforcement. They're always out in the community. I always see them out doing business checks. I really think highly of our police department. One way I think they can make improvements is, I think one thing is we're getting ready to build a community center. I mean, that's something that the community's needed for a long time. It's going to be something to do for everybody. Our young people have always needed something to do in the winter. I mean, there's not much for them to do around here in the winter, and I just think that's a great thing, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that they can keep it in budget and keep it going. Lebanon had built a community center and it had to be turned over to the YMCA, and I just hope that we can make sure that that doesn't happen in Camdenton.
Thank you. Chris, what are things you think the city does well? What are areas for improvement?
Things that I think the city does well. I think the law enforcement, the personnel at the law enforcement department or the police department, for the most part, are great people. They get out, interact with the community, do the right thing. Also, probably one of the smartest things the city has done in the last few years was contract out mid-county to bring in full-time firefighters. Now they have 24/7 coverage, where before they had 2 or 3 paid staff that were only on 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, and then it was relied on volunteers. I started out with mid-county back in the day as a volunteer firefighter, so I know how it is with jobs and everything, getting enough people to take care of a situation. So I think that's something awesome they've done in the last few years. Improvements, there's some improvements that need to be made in infrastructure, bringing in factory-type work, and weeding out problems in the system.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to Matthew. Matthew, what are things you think the city does well? What are the areas for improvement?
Coming from a police background, I love the police. They're my brothers and sisters. I don't think they're being properly paid. I don't think they have the proper budget for training. But that's definitely an area that I think is great at the city, and the sacrifices that they make. Touching on something that Daniel said, the community center, I know it's something big on the mayor's agenda, but it's a big loser. Essentially, it's just a large fitness center with a gymnasium. We have lots of gymnasiums at the school. And it's got a $5 million price tag. Not to mention it's going to lose money every month. When government moves into private business, it's socialism. That's exactly what it is. We need to keep tight parameters on our government. I don't think that's the direction we want to go.
Thank you very much. Steve Eden, what are the things you think that the city does well? What are the areas for improvement?
Having been on the council for several terms, I always appreciated that when it came time to budget, that we would always try to have a conservative budget to make sure that we had monies to do what we needed to do. I would hope that that would continue. But one of the things that I see that needs improvement is taking care of some of the employees. I know there have been employees who have left to take jobs that paid less than what they did at the city. I would like to see the city administration delve into that more and find out why and try to make a solution so that we can keep long-term employees here.
Thank you very much. And finally on this question, Mr. Mayor, what are the things you think the city does well? What are areas for improvement?
I think the city does well with our responsiveness to the needs of the people, whether it be the police department, water and sewer, our parks department. I think they do a great job there. I think one of the things that we have possibly neglected over the years because of the price tag that's involved is infrastructure. I think that's something that we need to work on. I know we're involved right now with working towards getting a $500,000 grant to overlay Business Route 5 from one end of the city to the other. I think another thing, and one of these candidates also mentioned this, with our fire protection services. We did contract with Mid-County to provide 24/7 fire protection. It also reduced our response time, cut it in half, and I was directly involved in the negotiation of that contract with Mid-County. So I'm proud of the fact that we've done that.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question, and the first responder will be Christopher Keith. Christopher, what areas or functions do you find critical when evaluating your city's planning efforts for economic growth? For example, business retention versus new business development, housing, including workforce housing, or workforce development?
First thing the city needs to look at is infrastructure, whether it be roads, water and sewer, sidewalks that travel from one side of the city to the other. They've done some updates recently, but it still doesn't cover the entire city with the sidewalk issue. You've got 3,000 children a day at the Camdenton school, and there's not sidewalks for them to walk from the school anywhere other than towards the square, and they're so sidewalks. If they need to go south of the school, they can't without walking in a ditch or somebody's yard. Even across to the library, which a lot more kids would probably utilize if they didn't have to walk on the side of the road to get there. Starting with that, and then bringing in more businesses, keeping the current businesses here, not running them off. And then once you get that stuff in here, then start adding more affordable housing. Affordable housing is huge around here right now. You can't find anything that's affordable right now.
Functions do you find critical when evaluating your city's planning efforts for economic growth? For example, business retention versus new business development, housing, including workforce housing, or workforce development?
When it comes to business, the government should stay out of it. When they get involved, such as it's too big to fail, they don't know about business. When the government does things, if it doesn't work, it's okay, we'll just take more tax money. When businesses are going along, if I don't make the right decisions for my business, I go out of business. So the best thing the government can do is stay out of the way of the businesses and improve the areas inside the city that's ours, the sidewalks, stuff like that, to make the city look like it should look. My question is, why are we losing? We've lost Quaker Windows to Eldon. The Gravois Mills has got the racetrack. Hobby Lobby's going to Osage Beach, not to mention so many other things over the past years have gone to the other cities. It's time for us to bring up the look of our city and stay out of the way of the businesses so that they'll come.
Next up is Steve Eden. Steve, what areas or functions do you find critical when evaluating your city's planning efforts for economic growth? For example, business retention versus new business development, housing, including workforce housing, or workforce development.
When I was on the council, we had sessions to where we got together to talk about what was important for businesses and how to make our area more attractive, such as internet access. There were some businesses that I remember made comment that, well, you don't have enough bandwidth for what we need. We were able to get grants, and the airport's being expanded, which would be another mode for them to get things in and out. When I first came here, 54 Highway was 3-lane through part of town and 2 the rest. Now the roads have been expanded. There's been a new 5 highway, so now there's better access to the interstates. And I think that if we can continue, these are things we can leverage to bring businesses here, plus just telling them and showing them how a beautiful place this is.
Very good. Moving on to John McNabb. What areas or functions do you find critical when evaluating your city's planning efforts for economic growth? For example, business retention versus new business development, housing, including workforce housing, or workforce development?
Well, I would first of all draw attention. Approximately 6 years ago, the city of Camdenton, when I was first mayor, we completely redid our comprehensive plan. We looked at all of our planning and zoning ordinances. We had a firm that came in and targeted areas where we could work to develop businesses. They also chose areas where it would be beneficial to the city to build residences. And so that's a big part of economic development and planning for the future. I think probably a good idea if some of us look back and looked at that comprehensive plan. We've done a lot of things over the years. Sidewalks. Right now, you can get on a sidewalk and walk all the way to Walmart. You can walk almost all the way to City Park. You can walk from the square to all the schools. So we've done a lot of things there, too.
Thank you very much. Next up will be Mr. Daniel Owsley. Daniel, what areas or functions do you find critical when evaluating your city's planning efforts for economic growth? For example, business retention versus new business development, housing, including workforce housing, or workforce development?
Economic growth and development is something that's very, very important to me. I'm actually on an economic development committee. We're reaching out to businesses. Even before I joined the committee, I've been working with an investment group that's trying to bring 100+ jobs to Camdenton. And that's something we really need. We've got plenty of seasonal jobs, minimum wage jobs, but what we really need in Camdenton is year-round, full-time, feed-your-family jobs. And that's something we really lack. That's why I've been talking to this group weekly. I took a tour of the facility. I've been trying to help them get things done. And unfortunately, our current mayor hasn't even taken them up on their offer to tour the facility. I mean, I just feel like the city needs to do more when it comes to looking for more full-time, year-round jobs. Thank
you. Moving on to the next question, but staying along the range of economic development, and our first respondent will be Mr. Matthew Gray. Matthew, should the municipal government of Camdenton play a role in the growth and development growth and development of the lake area as a whole? Or would your main focus be primarily on Camdenton itself?
Camdenton itself, like I told you earlier, we've got such a poverty rate here. We need to focus on the citizens here. We need to focus on the soul of the citizens here and bring them up. Development around the lake's going to continue to develop. It's exploding with growth right now. The business trying to find a house, like they talked about earlier, the prices have shot up. That's not going to change. I think the lake is going to continue to grow. It'd be my focus on making sure that Camden was ready for the right growth, ready and improving the way it looked so there wasn't so much blight in it. That's it.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Mr. Steve Eden. Should the municipal government of Camdenton play a role in the growth and development of the lake area as a whole? Or would your main focus be on primarily Camdenton itself?
I think it's a bit of both. Our priority should be for our citizens here. They're the ones that vote us in. They're the ones that want us to take care of the business for here in the city of Camdenton. However, if there is an opportunity where we could partner with somebody else in the lake area to leverage what we can't do by ourselves, then why not take advantage of working with other folks across the lake area if it can benefit our citizens and our city here. I don't want to see us be closed-minded and just look here in town. I think we need to look at all the possibilities and see what opportunities are out there that can be used to help us here.
Thank you. John McNabb. Should the municipal government of Camdenton play a role in the growth and development of the lake area as a whole, or would your main focus be primarily on Camdenton itself?
Well, I think we need to remember that we serve the people in the city first. And as far as infrastructure, those kind of things, business development, we need to consider that. But we also have to remember that there are so many of those people who live out in the county who use our services, who shop in Camdenton, who come here to buy their goods, and we need to consider their needs too. But first and foremost, it needs to be how we develop the city itself and our infrastructure, like I said, and the services we provide. Things have been said about the community center. I think the community center is a great opportunity. My motto on that has always been something for everyone, and I want something for everyone in that community center. And obviously, when we did our study, it was the entire area that would be using the community center, and we will draw from the whole area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Daniel Owsley. Should the municipal government of Camdenton play a role in the growth and development of the lake area as a whole, or would your main focus be primarily on Camdenton itself?
My main focus would be on Camdenton. I mean, Camdenton's been, Osage Beach and Lake Ozark are growing. Camdenton's growth has been little to none. I definitely believe we need to put Camdenton first, Camdenton's residents first, Camdenton's businesses first. Back to this community center issue, something that's really been bothering me is I think we need a community center. This town has needed a community center for years. And something that really bothered me was that when we had a question and answer a few weeks ago, one of the first things Mr. Gray said was his first priority is to stop the community center from happening because it's going to hurt his personal business, the fitness center. And I just think that personal matters and stuff like that need to be left out of it. I mean, I don't think a community center would hurt his business. I think a community center would be great for all of our citizens. I just think it'd be great for Camdenton.
Thank you. Moving on to Christopher Keith. Should the municipal government of Camdenton play a role in the growth and development of the lake area as a whole? Or would your main focus be primarily on Camdenton itself?
My main focus would be on Camdenton itself, but by doing so, upgrading stuff in the city of Camdenton, you're going to help the whole lake as a whole. Getting the community center in here, as long as it's done right, done under budget or done on budget, it will offer opportunities to people that can't afford other things to do. Expanding the city park, airport expansion's going in now. That's going to draw in more people to the city of Camdenton, which is going to help the city and in turn help the lake as a whole. But my main focus will be on the city of Camdenton, hopefully improving things here enough that they help improve the community, the lake area as a whole.
All right. That concludes that question. Moving on to question number 5. Mr. Steve Eden will be the first responder here. If elected, how do you plan to keep your constituency informed on the issues facing the city and the decisions made by their municipal government?
I think it's going to take a multiple method to do so. You've got a significant population that they're used to reading the newspaper. You've got a significant population that was raised up on Facebook and the internet. You've got the city newsletter that goes out, which I think has been a wonderful thing. That was started several years back. But it's going to be one of those, we're going to have to look at all of the methods available to us to try to make sure we reach all of the people, to keep them informed, as well as to give them a method to send information back to us so that we know what's going right, what's going wrong, and maybe even have a suggestion on how to improve.
Thank you very much. Mr. John McNabb, if reelected, how do you plan to keep your constituency informed on the issues facing the city and the decisions made by their municipal government?
Well, I think we've done a lot in the last few years to provide information for people. When COVID first hit our community, we started working towards, we now broadcast all of our city council meetings live on Facebook. So that's an opportunity for people to tune in and see actually what's going on in the city. I'm constantly encouraging the people at the City Hall to do things with, we're doing a lot of great things. People in our community are doing a lot of great things. And we need to do a better job of putting out those press releases and letting people know what we're doing. And I think we've concentrated on that here just recently. I think we're doing a good job. I think the door is always open. I called a lady back this morning that had a problem with her road. I think I'm there. I keep regular business hours at City Hall every day, and I'm there for the people.
Thank you. Thank you. Daniel Owsley. If elected, how do you plan to keep your constituency informed on the issues facing the city and the decisions made by their municipal government?
You know, I've been going around talking to several business owners about this, and I actually got the idea that we really need to have a Camdenton community Facebook page where people can express their concerns, give their ideas, be involved in what's going on in the community, let them know what's going on. And another thing that I've talked about is I'd like to start a thing called Mayor Mondays, Coffee Mayor Mondays, where people can come in, my door will be open, sit down, have a cup of coffee, express your concerns, any ideas that you might have, and just have an open door policy to the community.
Very good. Christopher, if elected, how do you plan to keep your constituency informed on the issues facing the city and the decisions made by their municipal government?
Like some of these guys have said, social media. Guessing everybody up here is older because now you get laughed at and called old if you're on Facebook. It's all Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Parlor. There's so many sites out there. being an SRO at the school, I used to have to go through all these phones and find all these cool things. So, but getting on those outlets, getting it put out to the public, keeping the newspaper going, finding an outlet other than the Lake Sun that's not going to charge people to look at their stuff online will help. I get so upset that when I go to try to read something and I can't because I've already maxed out my 3 looks for the month or whatever it is. So then I have to go find somewhere else to find it and read it. Or I have to go buy a newspaper from the gas station if there's any left. But getting it out there to the public, making everything accessible, making sure that I see all the messages coming into the city's Facebook page, and looking over those and them not getting discarded by other people.
Thank you, Christopher. Matthew Gray, if elected, how do you plan to keep your constituency informed on the issues facing the city and the decisions made by their municipal government?
All media options are going to be on the table. I'm going to respond to the comment that was made earlier about me and my business. And there's going to be that, and I actually had some of this on Facebook. Some people responded to me about me not wanting the community center. And people think, oh, you're greedy or you're selfish. But what I'm here to tell you is I'm doing well. My business is going to do well. I know how to run a fitness center. The city does not know how to run a fitness center, and that's what it's a glorified fitness center with a gym on it. And the mayor's going to tell you it's for everybody. I'm thinking about for everybody. He's not thinking about for me. He's not thinking about for Chris that owns KA Fitness. He's not thinking about the guy that owns the event center, because this business is going to encroach on our businesses. I'm sorry, guys. This is un-American to make us pay taxes and then compete with us with that money. There are people that think this is a good idea. I understand that until it's your business. Or if they think it's such a great idea, I invite them to take their money and create it themselves, because they'll lose. It's going to lose money every month. They're not going to run it properly. I got you. Thanks.
All right, moving on to the next question. John McNabb will be the first responder on this one. Mr. McNabb, how do you see the role of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office in the day-to-day operations of the city?
The mayor's office is more involved probably in the day-to-day decisions that are made by the city. But ultimately, the Board of Aldermen are the people who make the decisions. Just as an example, I've been mayor for 8 years. Every issue that we voted on, the only way the mayor ever votes is if there's a tie. I've voted one time in 8 years. The Board of Aldermen make the final decision. They're the ones who approve the budget. They're the ones who make those important decisions. And, you know, I try to keep the board up to date on what's going on. Anytime we have major things going on, they always get a phone call from me to explain or ask for their input. But ultimately, the Board of Aldermen is the group that decides, and that's the way it should be.
Daniel Owsley, how do you see the role of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office in the day-to-day operations of the city?
It is true that the aldermen are the one that approve the budget. They're the ones that vote. The mayor's responsibility is to go over the budget and make sure it's right, make sure that there's a financial responsibility with the tax dollars that are going into the budget. I feel like there can be a lot of improvements there made. I feel something I can bring to the table is in my own personal finances. I've been debt-free for many, many years. I follow a debt-free living program. I don't get loans for cars. I don't have a mortgage. I just think financial responsibility and the budget is the mayor's top priority when it comes to dealing with the things at the mayor's office.
Thank you very much. Christopher, how do you see the role of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office in the day-to-day operations of the city?
the mayor and the Board of Aldermen's job is to make sure they have the proper people in place to run the day-to-day operations. They will receive information in reference to what goes on if there's any kind of major incidents, major problems with the city from those heads of those departments. I also think if there's issues with those heads of departments, that everybody should know what's been brought up, what's been talked about, and it should be passed around, and it shouldn't just be a decision by one person at that point. We pay a city administrator a ton of money to run the city day to day. Each department has a department head, whether it be the police chief, the fire chief, the public works director, the parks director now. I think there's one more I'm missing, but they pay a lot of money out to those guys to run the day-to-day operations, and their reports should go back to the mayor and to the city alderman for review, but it's not the alderman and the mayor's job to run the day-to-day.
Very good. Matthew Gray, how do you see the role of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office in the day-to-day operations of the city?
I agree that there's people that are over certain areas of the city, and they're the ones who need to run that. I think the board and the mayor's job is the budget, and also ensuring that those people running those positions, the different areas of the city, are running them properly and running them on a sensible budget. I think that's really what you need to do as the mayor and the alderman.
And finally, on question number 6, Mr. Steve Eaton, how do you see the role of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor's office in the day-to-day operations of the city?
I have to agree with Mr. McNabb, having been on the Board of Aldermen. The board has the ultimate say. Whether the mayor agrees or not, even if the mayor vetoes a bill, the Board of Aldermen can override that veto. And of course, the board are the people that are responsible to the citizens in each of their wards. And it has to be a cooperative effort with everybody putting in their effort to oversee what areas that need to be looked at. Of course, again, the board has to see it all. The mayor is, as I've said before, a bit of a facilitator between the board, what the citizens want, the department heads. The mayor is there to help make things run smooth.
Thank you very much. And because you guys have been respectful of the time, we have time for an additional bonus question here. We will start with Daniel on this one. What experience do you have interacting with the various departments in the city?
I really don't have any experience interacting with departments of the city. I am on an economic development committee, and the city administrator, he's also on the economic development committee. I do have interactions with the various people in the police department. I was good friends with Laura Wright, who is a former chief of police. I talked with her quite often. Other than that, I really haven't had much experience with interactions with people in city government.
Mr. Keith, what experience do you have interacting with the various departments of the city government?
Prior to working for the city as a police officer for 8 years, I was with Mid-County Fire Department for almost 15. So I've worked with pretty much everybody at one point or another involved in all the different points of the government. As a police officer for 8 years, I'd have to call the water department in the evenings for busted pipes, things like that. As a police officer, I was out in the community and dealing with all the other officers pretty much on a daily basis. I was at the school for a long time, so I'd get a lot of phone calls late at night asking me questions, about looking for children, looking for kids, who they hang out with, things like that. So I dealt with everybody there. Upstairs with building department and then the mayor's office and stuff, interactions in day-to-day stuff, not a lot of. And then, yeah, that's about it.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Gray, what experience do you have interacting with the various departments of the city?
Really very little. When I started my business initially here, which was in 2008, of course I dealt with the codes people, and they come around yearly. I deal with them there. But I've been in business here in different fashions since that. I never met the mayor until I started this process. I actually never seen him until I started this process. I do interact with some of the city employees. They're members of my gym. So I have interaction with them, but not in a city function. That's it.
Very good. Finally, Steve Eden. What experience do you have interacting with the various departments in the city?
I would say I probably have about as much as anybody, considering I was hired on as a police officer. Chief Beecham and I were patrolmen together for many years. I was on the fire department, so I had to also interact with the water department, working nights. There was more than one time that I was out there on the side of the road with the guys digging up a sewer line, digging up a water line. I used to know every one of them. Now they've got some new ones I don't know, but being on the board, I had interaction with everybody in City Hall. In fact, I told Jeff Hancock when he came to be city administrator, I said, I hope you don't get mad because I'm probably going to know about a problem in the city before you do, because I'm going to be there to hear the 911 call for some of these. So I don't see where I couldn't continue doing that, and I think that allows a mayor to be able to keep his finger on the pulse of what's going on.
And finally, Mr. Mayor, what experience do you have interacting with the various departments of the city?
Well, obviously, I have 13 years of experience in city government. I think I have a great relationship with all the department heads. I think they know that I support them and that I have their back. We worked hard to give them the things that they need at budget time. I know sometimes they have to get some bad news about something that that they've asked for that they're not going to get. But I think we do it in such a way that they understand that it's the good for the entire city, and that we have to divide that money up and what's best for the whole community. I think our department heads do a great job with their budgets. But I interact with those folks just almost on a daily basis and have really worked hard to cultivate a good relationship with those department heads.
Thank you very much. This concludes our question and answer portion of the evening. We will now give each candidate an opportunity to make a closing statement of up to 2 minutes. We will go in reverse order of the opening statements, and again, please be aware of the timekeeper. Mr. Daniel Owsley.
Look, I just want to serve the city of Camdenton, the people, the businesses. I've been out in the community. I've hosted community events. I'm frequently talking to business owners. I've made videos promoting small businesses in our community. What it really is about Camdenton. I love Camdenton. I love the people of Camdenton, and I just want to spend some time giving back to our community.
Thank you, sir. Our next candidate will be Mr. Steve Eden.
Like I said before, I've been told that sometimes the best way to affect change is from the inside. I think with all the experience that I've had in all the different areas, as well as knowing people, having experience with getting grants, I have some abilities and knowledge that I think could make Camdenton better. I've served in one capacity or another for 30 years for this city. When I came here, it felt like home. The people have always supported me with some of the personal issues that I've had over the years. And I want to contribute more. I've said in the past that, sometimes just a little bit of a different point of view can bring something to light that can solve some of the issues that we have. I think that I can bring that point of view. I know how city government works, having been on the board of aldermen for several terms. I understand how our department heads have to do their job because I had to do that job while I was the fire chief. And I want to support our employees because I'm a firm believer if you have good employees, you support them, and they're happy at their job, they're going to give you 100% or more. And that is a resource that you just can't go out and buy anywhere. And I'd like to be considered for mayor.
Thank you very much. Next candidate for the closing statements, Mr. John McNabb. You have 2 minutes.
I think we've done a lot of things over the last 8 years. One of the things that I've mentioned is in my time as mayor, we've issued 291 new business licenses, and many of those businesses are still thriving today. Police is always an issue. We need to compensate our police officers better. In my time as mayor, we've raised the average police officer's salary over $3 an hour. Obviously, that's not enough. Policemen never get paid enough for what they do, but we're constantly working to make things better for our policemen. We've done some other things. We have contracted with Mid-County Fire Protection District, and they do a great job for us, and that's been a great improvement in the city. One other thing that's allowed us to do is when our fire department moved out, we remodeled that building, and Missouri State University has a contract to operate a public safety center there. That's where our police officers and over 200 other police officers from mid-Missouri get their annual training. It's allowed us to do that training much more efficiently than we did in the past. One thing I would like to do, I'd like you to come out tomorrow. We're doing a groundbreaking for tomorrow. That's something that I am very proud of. We are groundbreaking tomorrow for a new Veterans Administration clinic that will be here in the city of Camdenton. The beginning ceremonies are at the VFW Hall. City staff and I have been working on that for almost 8 months and worked extremely hard. I think it's something that's much needed. It's going to be a great facility, should be open in November. And what more deserving group to have something like that right here in Camdenton than our veterans? I'm really proud that we're bringing that to the community.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Matthew Gray, you have 2 minutes.
I believe I should be the next mayor because of my background in not only public service, but also in business. I think, unfortunately, a lot of government is moving in the wrong direction of continuing to grow. A good friend of mine many years ago, me and him were talking, and he said, the problem with government is it never stops growing. That's what the current administration wants. That's what the mayor wants. I'm totally against it. And I don't know how many people I've talked to that say, man, if we just had term limits. He's been here for 8 years. I think it's time for something new. I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final candidate for the closing statement, Mr. Christopher Keith.
Hello, I'm Christopher Keith. I would like your vote because I believe we need change in the mayor's office and around the city as a whole. I believe some of the things that have been done good need to be pushed on some more. We need to continue to grow certain areas of the city. That way it can allow more businesses, more jobs, opportunities for people to work, and also help push more housing into the area. They keep talking about the 100+ possible job opening. The factory's been sitting there for 15 or 20 years now, just empty. Had the city done what they should have done when the information was first retrieved, that should have been cleaned up 10 or 15 years ago, and been put back in with some of these businesses that have already come to look at that. And now all that's needed is a variance to get that business in there, and the city seems to be fighting that because other people have made phone calls to them to fight that, and that are not citizens of this community. That business would bring 100+ top-paying jobs to this area. People would be making well over the minimum wage working there. It would also bring in a lot of money to the city as far as taxing and stuff like that to help improve the things we need improved on, such as infrastructure, finishing the sidewalk project, bringing in people flying it, finishing up the airport project, getting that done. That'll bring in more people that way. There are a lot of good things going on in the city, but they need to be improved on and pushed farther. Pull back some of the government on some of the businesses. The lockdown issue was probably the biggest problem we've had in the city in a while. I believe that the mayor and the city aldermen overstepped on that at that time and how they handled that. But I would like your vote for mayor.
Thank you, Chris. And with that, that concludes our municipal forum tonight. I'd like to thank Lake TV for their participation, both the Lake area and the Camden area Chambers of Commerce, and of course the candidates. Appreciate you guys coming out tonight. The city, the citizens, I'm sure appreciate hearing from you. Particularly my mother, who is a citizen here, lives over on Sesame Street. I know she's listening tonight, and I think this is a very valuable event for our community, and I sincerely appreciate all you gentlemen's participation tonight. To the viewers at home, please join us again tomorrow night as we delve into the Lake Ozark municipal elections. But until next time, ta-ta for now.